Imagine a world where the air hums with sacred chants, where rivers are revered as goddesses, and where the rhythm of life pulses to the beat of nature's heart. This is the Vedic Age, a time when the foundations of Indian civilization were laid, when sages sang hymns to the cosmos, and warriors rode chariots under skies ablaze with stars. Close your eyes, and let's travel back to ancient India, roughly 1500 to 500 BCE, a land of emerald forests, shimmering rivers, and a people whose wisdom still echoes in our modern world. In this journey, we'll walk through bustling villages, sit by the fire with poets and priests, and witness the birth of ideas that shaped philosophy, science, and spirituality. From the daily grind of farmers to the cosmic musings of rishis, life in the Vedic Age was a tapestry of simplicity and profundity. This is not just a history lesson, it's a story of humanity's quest to understand its place in the universe. So, settle in, and let the voices of the past guide us through a world both ancient and alive. The Vedic Age begins with the land itself, a vast, fertile expanse in northwest India, cradled by the mighty Himalayas and watered by the Sapta Sindhu, the seven rivers. Picture the Indus, the Sarasvati, and their tributaries winding like silver threads through plains of green and gold. These rivers were the lifeblood of the Vedic people, nourishing their crops, sustaining their herds, and inspiring their hymns. The now mythical Sarasvati, celebrated in the Rigveda, was said to be so wide that it roared like 1,000 lions, its banks a cradle for settlements that buzzed with activity. The Vedic Aryans, a pastoral and semi-nomadic people, called this land Aryavarta, the abode of the noble. They were not city dwellers like their Mesopotamian contemporaries. Their world was one of villages, clusters of mud and thatch homes surrounded by fields of barley and wheat. Picture a morning in such a village. The air smells of dew and cow dung, smoke curls from hearths, and the distant lowing of cattle blends with the chant of a priest invoking Agni, the fire god. The landscape was dotted with forests teeming with deer, elephants, and tigers, but it was the open plains that the Aryans loved, where their chariots could race and their herds could graze. Yet this was no Eden. The rivers could flood, turning fields to muck. Droughts could wither crops, and rival tribes, both Aryan and non-Aryan, could raid under cover of night. Life was a dance with nature, demanding resilience and reverence. The Vedas, the sacred texts composed in this era, reflect this intimacy with the land. Hymns to Indra, the storm god, beg for rain. Odes to Soma, the divine plant, celebrate the ecstasy of ritual. The natural world wasn't just a backdrop. It was a living presence, woven into every aspect of Vedic life. As we wander this land, imagine standing on a riverbank at dawn, the water catching the first rays of sunlight. A fisherman casts his net, a woman balances a clay pot on her hip, and a child chases a stray goat. This is the pulse of the Vedic world, raw, vibrant, and deeply connected to the earth. Step inside a Vedic household, and you're greeted by the crackle of a fire and the aroma of freshly baked barley bread. Homes were simple but sturdy, built from mud, wood, and thatch, with low roofs to keep out the monsoon rains. The heart of the home was the fire altar, where Agni was honored daily. Families gathered here not just to cook, but to pray, to share stories, and to bind themselves to the divine order, or RTA. A typical family was large and multi-generational: grandparents, parents, children, and sometimes aunts and uncles, all under one roof. Men and women had distinct roles, but they weren't as rigid as in later periods. Men herded cattle, plowed fields, or trained as warriors, while women spun wool, ground grain, and managed the household. Some women, especially those of high status, were poets or seers. Think of Gargi, a philosopher who challenged sages with her intellect, or Lopamudra, whose hymns graced the Rigveda. Children were the heartbeat of the home, raised with love, but also discipline. Boys learned to tend cattle or chant mantras, while girls mastered weaving or ritual duties. Education wasn't formal but practical, passed down through stories and apprenticeship. Imagine a boy sitting cross-legged by his father, learning to string a bow, or a girl watching her mother offer milk to the fire, memorizing the chants that accompanied each gesture. Food was simple but hearty. Barley and wheat were staples, ground into flour for flatbreads or boiled into porridges. Milk, butter, and ghee were prized. Cows were sacred, not just for their products, but as symbols of wealth. Meat was eaten, especially during sacrifices, when goats or bulls were offered to the gods. Soma, a mysterious plant-based drink, was reserved for rituals, its preparation a closely guarded art. Picture a family meal: a clay platter piled with steaming bread, a bowl of curd flecked with herbs, and laughter as a toddler steals a morsel. But life wasn't all ease. Disease was a constant threat, with no hospitals or pharmacies. Healers used herbs, chants, and rituals to ward off illness, blending medicine with magic. Death was ever present, and funerals were solemn affairs, the body cremated on a pyre while hymns invoked the ancestors. Yet the Vedic people faced life with optimism, believing in rebirth and the eternal cycle of existence. As we linger by the hearth, notice the small details. A woman's bangles clinking as she kneads dough, a grandfather carving a wooden toy, the fire casting shadows on mud walls. This was the Vedic home, modest, warm, and alive with purpose. If the home was the heart of Vedic life, rituals were its soul. The Vedic Aryans saw the universe as a grand symphony, governed by RTA, the cosmic order. Their religion wasn't housed in temples, but in open-air altars, where fire carried offerings to the gods. The Vedas, Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and later the Atharva Veda, were their sacred texts, not written, but memorized and chanted with precision. These hymns weren't just poetry, they were the keys to the cosmos, unlocking divine favor and human destiny. Priests, or brahmanas, were the conductors of this cosmic orchestra. A ritual could be as simple as a daily offering of ghee, or as grand as the Ashvamedha, a horse sacrifice to proclaim a king's supremacy. Picture a major ritual, a clearing by the river, a fire altar built with mathematical precision, priests chanting in unison as the air grows thick with smoke and anticipation. The chief priest, sweat beading on his brow, pours soma into the flames, invoking Indra to grant victory. The crowd, farmers, warriors, women, children, watches in awe, believing their fate hangs on every word. The gods were vivid and human-like. Indra, the thunder-wielding warrior, was a hero who slew demons. Agni, the fire, was a friend who carried prayers to the heavens. Varuna, the sky god, upheld justice, watching mortals with unblinking eyes. But the Vedic mind wasn't content with worship alone. It questioned existence itself. The Nasadiya Sukta, a Rigvedic hymn, ponders creation. In the beginning, there was neither being nor non-being. Who truly knows? This wasn't blind faith, but a quest for truth, blending devotion with philosophy. Women, too, had a voice in this spiritual world. Some, like Vishpala, were celebrated in hymns for their courage, while others composed verses that rivaled those of men. Rituals weren't just for priests. Families participated, binding communities through shared belief. Imagine a festival night. Drums echo, dancers swirl around bonfires, and the air buzzes with chants and laughter. Yet spirituality wasn't all grandeur. The Atharva Veda reveals a humbler side. Charms to cure fevers, spells to win love, prayers for safe childbirth. This was a faith that embraced both the cosmic and the everyday, seeing the divine in every blade of grass. As we stand in this sacred circle, the fire's warmth on our faces, we feel the Vedic pulse, a blend of awe, curiosity, and connection to the infinite. The Vedic age wasn't all peace and prayer. It was also a time of conflict and ambition. The Aryans were skilled warriors, their lives shaped by the need to protect cattle, claim land, and assert dominance. Picture a warrior, clad in leather armor, his bronze-tipped spear gleaming as he mounts a horse-drawn chariot. These chariots, light and swift, were the tanks of their day, thundering across plains in raids or battles. The Rigveda sings of clashes with Dasyas and other tribes, though these tales mix history with myth. Society was hierarchical but fluid, not yet rigid with caste. At the top were the Rajanyas, warriors and chiefs, and Brahmanas, priests, followed by Vish, commoners, mostly farmers and herders, and Shudras, laborers, often non-Aryans. A skilled farmer could rise to wealth, and a brave warrior could become a Raja, or king. Imagine a tribal assembly, or Sabha, where men debated cattle raids or alliances, their voices rising over cups of soma. Women, too, had influence, especially in royal households, advising husbands or raising heirs. Cattle were the currency of power. A rich man was Gopati, lord of cows, and raids were as much about stealing herds as gaining glory. Picture a moonlit night, hooves pounding as young warriors drive stolen cattle home, adrenaline pumping, knowing rivals might strike back. Yet war wasn't constant. Trade flourished too, with bartered goods like pottery, wool, and bronze tools. Leadership was personal. A Raja wasn't a distant monarch, but a warrior who fought alongside his men, feasted with them, and listened to their grievances. The Vedatha, a tribal council, included women and elders, showing a society that valued consensus. As we watch a chariot race, dust flying, crowds cheering, we see the Vedic spirit, bold, competitive, and fiercely alive. The Vedic Age wasn't just about survival. It was a cradle of creativity. The Vedas themselves are masterpieces, their Sanskrit verses rich with metaphor and rhythm. Composing a hymn was an art, requiring mastery of language and music. Picture a poet, or a kavi, sitting under a banyan tree, crafting lines to honor the dawn goddess, Ushas, his words flowing like the river beside him. Music and dance were woven into life. Flutes, lutes, and drums accompanied rituals and festivals, while dancers mimicked the movements of gods or animals. Imagine a moonlit gathering. A girl spins to a drum beat, her anklets jingling, as elders nod in approval. Storytelling was another art, with tales of heroes and demons passed down by firelight, shaping the myths that became the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Crafts thrived too. Potters shaped clay into elegant jars. Weavers spun wool into vibrant cloth, and metalsmiths forged bronze weapons and ornaments. Vedic people loved beauty. Women adorned themselves with shell bangles and turmeric-dyed robes, while men wore earrings and turbans. The mind was as active as the hands. Vedic thinkers explored astronomy, noting the stars to mark seasons. They developed mathematics, with early concepts of zero and infinity. Medicine blended herbs with rituals, treating ailments from snake bites to fevers. As we listen to a flute's haunting melody, we sense the Vedic intellect, curious, inventive, and attuned to life's mysteries. As the Vedic age waned around 500 BCE, it gave way to new eras, urban empires, Jainism, Buddhism, but its spirit never faded. The Vedas remained sacred, their chants still echoing in temples. The caste system, fluid in Vedic times, hardened later, but the era's openness to women's voices and philosophical inquiry left a lasting mark. Yoga, Ayurveda, and Sanskrit owe their roots to this age, as do the epics that inspire billions. Picture a modern festival, Diwali's lamps, Holi's colors, and you'll see Vedic echoes, fire, joy, and community. The Vedic quest for truth lives on in India's pluralism, its blend of science and spirituality. As we stand at the edge of this ancient world, we realize its lessons aren't distant. They remind us to honor nature, seek wisdom, and live with purpose. As our journey ends, imagine sitting by a Vedic fire one last time. A sage raises his hands, chanting, "May we attain the wisdom of the ancients, the strength of heroes, the peace of the rivers." The flames leap, carrying his words to the stars. The Vedic age wasn't perfect. It was human, flawed, and vibrant. Yet, in its hymns, its homes, its hopes, we find a mirror to our own search for meaning. So carry this story with you. Let it whisper of a time when humanity sang to the dawn, wrestled with gods, and dreamed of eternity. The Vedic age lives, not just in history, but in the heartbeat of every soul seeking light.